Good morning to all of you. So, the title suggests that we talk about the shifts from the supply leader position that we have in the India pharma industry and the need for it to move into what is called innovation brand. And there is a silent emerging revolution that is shaping up, and we are yet to put a name to it. We are yet to call what the revolution is all about, and also yet to grab it with both the hands. So this is the discussion on supply leader to innovation brand. I'll tell you a story of Made in Japan. All of you understand, Made in Japan is a big brand. It signals quality, it signals strength, trust, reliability, so on and so forth. But back in 1950s, Made in Japan stood for something flimsy, something cheap, poor quality, and it was a bad reputation. So the country looked at this particular scenario as a scenario that worries them, and they went back and they did something very interesting. By 1960s, or in the beginning of 1960s, they had a great execution plan to convert this. They put together their heads, they worked very hard, they built quality, and by end of 1970s or the beginning of 80s, Made in Japan became a synonym for amazing quality, trust, reliability, so on and so forth. Isn't it a good story? But it looks too simple for us. It looks too simple that over the 20-year period, something magic that Japan had done, and they're able to change their name and perception just like that. It's not true. What is true lies in the details, and the details are here. I said 1950 they had this problem, 1960 there is an execution plan in place, and what is that execution? There is a national commitment for quality. Unless and until it starts at the top of the heap, it doesn't get percolated. So the entire commitment is for quality, not just to reduce the cost. And it began there. Deming, the quality guru who is known for his statistical quality control techniques, he traveled to Japan, lectured the engineers in Japan, and then Toyota has picked up, various other organizations have picked up. It is not that, one organization excelled in isolation. He has, across Japan, all the engineers were trained to deploy statistical methods and techniques of quality, and they proceeded on that. So there was a consistent, all-round quality as something that they embraced throughout the country. It is not just in some kind of, islands of excellence. And of course, individual organizations like Toyota with their excellence processes, individual organizations in electronics as well, home appliances as well have picked up. So the story is that by the time the brand became well known across the world, by the time the perception was reaching its tipping point, there were multiple products that led the revolution, and it had worked together so that, the result is a big hit to the entire world in terms of changing the perception. Of course, government policy has to align with it. It cannot happen independent of that. Long-term thinking was coming along with the government alignment. Export strategies that benchmarked with global standards. If you are exporting to US and Europe, you will punch above your weight and you work very hard to actually validate for international requirements and concerns. You don't make for India. You don't make for domestic validation. That's the point here. Clustering and ecosystem thinking will come back to this. But then here the lesson is shared learning, better quality control, and then, learning from one another when you work together, from manufacturers to vendors to researchers and learners and executors. Of course, when I said 20 years of a revolution, it was silent, but silence required a lot of patience, and that is most underrated in any revolution. And in Japan, they had a lot of patience to wait for this. They did not thrive on announcing it to the world. They just let it happen, let the quality spoke. The performance of their automobiles Of course, coupled with the oil crisis in the US that led to the performance of the automobile brands of Japan seen better, and then your consumer electronic products, the Walkman, and your Panasonic home appliances, all of them have traveled the world, got their acceptance, and then this revolution came to be recognized in a big way. So that's the story. It is not a very simple story of a magic, but there is a magical approach to what they have done, and that's made in Japan story. Now, the call is, are we in the 1960s for India Pharma? Are we in the beginning of that stage where a lot of things are happening? For 20 years, it was not recognized for Japan. Are similar things happening for India Pharma and the world is not noticing it? Are we in that 1960s stage, so to say? Let's see what is in store for us. In the next few slides, we are going to talk about it. But before that, I thought we need to also gauge where are we in terms of our performance. If you want to understand the entire India Pharma as an industry to be evaluated on certain parameters, on each of the parameters where we are, I'll give you a very, very quick snapshot, and then from there we take it forward. Volume, we seem to have dominance. Export, very, very huge export credibility that we can talk about. Manufacturing, 600 plus US FDA approved plants, which is highest outside US. And this kind of a backbone is something we are supposed to be proud of. Innovation, I think we are getting there. We are weak at this stage. R&D intensity, that is investment in thinking, probably we are moderate. Underinvested in deep science, that's the verdict. Biologics and advanced therapies, we are starting to make noise, which is the early growth phase according to me. But there's a huge opportunity and we need to convert this into our future strength as well. And talent readiness, this is a perennial problem and we still have to acknowledge that we have a problem here as well. We need to convert our talent into a possibility of action. And this is where we need to work. We are weak at this stage. Now, in all these parameters, this is where we are currently as far as India Pharma as an industry is concerned. Global perception, as we talked about Japan, we seem to be slowly moving into being recognized for our innovation. There are examples. Is our aspiration pretty strong? There's a question mark on that. Let's see how some examples are showing the way. Yes, we seem to be 9 on 10 in execution, but we are believed to be 5 on 10 as far as imagination is concerned. And here we begin. The world has already, for example, you want to move up the value chain. If you want to ascend the value chain, the world has moved from volume to value, generics to biologics, manufacturing to innovation, and cost to intelligence. On certain parameters on the left, we have done extremely well, but on the parameters on to the right, are we doing well is the question. And we'll take a few examples and close this discussion at that. The first example is immunoACT. Someone was talking about this in the previous discussion. IIT Bombay has established a research. An academic research is to publish the research reports and be done with it. But they have converted the research lab into actually providing a real world solution, a real world treatment. They have built an organization. That organization, what it talks about, immunoACT, is pull out your immunocells, reprogram them so that they identify the cancer cells, infuse it back into the human body, and they go and fight that. It's like your agent. This cell therapy science being converted into a real treatment is what IIT Bombay has done. And the spin-off, this commercial vehicle that they talked about, this spin-off is now into the market. Government of India has acknowledged it. President of India has launched it. And then we have moved from the erstwhile, what I mentioned on the left-hand side, generics, to a therapeutic innovation in this case. This is the first example where the shift is already there. The people who were talking about cell therapy some time back, this is a hair-raising experience that India could actually achieve this. And the cost at which they have achieved is 1/10 of what it is available for in the US. The CAR T cell therapy is very, very expensive, 400,000 US dollars, and 1/10 only in India is a great achievement for India, definitely. The second example is Peptris. This is a startup in Bangalore. What they have done, Peptris has established a company which deals with AI and computational chemistry. Now they have established a platform, an AI platform, whose algorithm is meant for scanning millions of possibilities and then discover a molecule. The first one is called living drug because it doesn't work on a chemical, it works on what is inside your cell. This one is called AI molecule. The AI molecule is discovered by AI process which otherwise the humans would have missed. It is not by trial and error. It is by a very effective AI platform whose algorithm is speaking and identifying a molecule. And then, of course, they have given it for development to their global partners. And it is a great achievement for us to see that an Indian company has identified a candidate that is already in the development pipeline across the globe with their partner. And what is this? This is the shift. It is like being made in India is moving from made in India to conceived in India or designed in India, whatever name you want to call it. For now, keep it as conceived in India. It is very much our stamp on the global healthcare, on the global pharma. And this is what we have to take note of. This is again an amazing development that is happening. I'll go to the third one. There are a number of cases like that, but I'll stop that. We are located to very closely with the Genome Valley, which is one of the largest biotech clusters, ecosystems that we have in Hyderabad. And I'm very happy that this summit is being held here. And what happened in Sapien Biosciences? In Sapien Biosciences, they have assembled, put together large data sets of patients. For example, 300,000 data sets of patients with cancer-related diseases. And this data is being supplied to the AI models world around so that those AI models are trained. Otherwise, those AI models are trained on Eurogenics, the data from Europe. Just generally the Western models do that, and it is heavily skewed. Whereas India provides this data, one, for large numbers, second, for genetic diversity, third, for variety of disease patterns. Now, this makes the AI model very rich. And then the Indian data moving from India to correcting the global bias, and from there on, shaping the outcome. What is this? This is actually intelligence. This is smart, using data, using AI, using regulations and everything, and then shaping the outcomes and models of the world. That's what India is doing, and therefore we call it conceived in India. There are many examples like this which go on, from living drug to AI molecule to data sovereign. Data sovereign is what is the accomplishment here. Data sovereign is your data is defining the outcome of the world. Your data is correcting the global bias. Your data is shaping the outcomes for healthcare across the world. Isn't it a great achievement? It is. From treatment to discovery to intelligence, we have moved. From made in India to conceived in India, we have moved. There are several examples. But are these three people, just stick to these three examples, are they solving different problems? No. They're actually solving the same thing, or they're building the same healthcare system. If we think that we are working in isolation, Japan did not think that they were working in isolation. They put their heads together. They joined forces, from government to training to export to volumes to individual organizations. Everyone has joined forces. Here again, we need to join forces to build that narrative. This is a great opportunity for us, and this shift is what we are witnessing now. And this shift enables us to actually go and claim what is happening. Of course, recent examples and not so recent examples that are writ large on each and every giant of pharma that is from this country, in terms of from Sun Pharma to Peptris and Enzene, we have been stamping the conceived in India model right from the beginning to now. And now is the time for us to go and claim. But how will you claim? Will you wait for 20 years like it has taken for Japan? Will you wait for such a longer time? I don't think so. So we talked about three eras of pharma brand. We have built the trust, which was led by Cipla by providing access for the HIV drugs. Then to the second era in terms of scale, credibility was very much coming forth with the scale. And the third, which is the current era, where our conception, cognition, innovation, imagination is influencing the world in terms of the journey towards improving healthcare across the world. I think that's where we are. While we are there, we need to actually, from trust, credibility to influence that we have moved, we need to actually go towards what we suggest conceived in India. If you have to give a name, it has to be conceived in India. If you have to claim it, you first name it, then own it, then narrate it, articulate it properly, brand it, and then the perception of India across the world will obviously move from what we were to what we deservingly would like to be. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have to wait for 20 years. I think we need to straight away, with all the pharma people around here, put their heads together, join forces along with government and private, and then work for conceived in India. Thank you for this opportunity.